Let's move on to our next guest, who I think is the first reporter who actually found out from De'Aaron Fox that he was injured, although we all knew it. Outstanding Kings beat writer from the Sacramento Bee, Jason Anderson. How has your break been, Jason?
It's been pretty good. Yeah, it's a little bit of a break. Still have the sports editor duties,
Sure.
and we're in the thick of like high school basketball stuff. So Joe Davidson's out there running around like a madman. So there's always plenty to do, but it's been nice. Having a little bit of extra time without the games. I was going to go to Indy for the AllStar game and decided to pull out of that when Domas and DeAaron weren't going. So, I actually did get a little bit of a break to recharge a little.
Sure. Jason, what do we know? What do we not know about De'Aaron Fox's shoulder injury?
We don't know much. We know it hurts. We know, we've seen him many times, like kind of move and grab the shoulder when I think he gets when he gets bumped a little bit and it gets irritated. I asked him about it yesterday. He started to talk about it, and so I kind of took the opening to ask him a little more. And he said he described it as minor. He said it hasn't been serious enough to get the MRI and figure out exactly what it is. So we don't know if there's a strain or a tear or there's any number of things that it could be. And so we really don't know what that is because it sounds like they haven't gone in and looked at it real closely, but he didn't seem overly concerned about it. He did describe it as minor. He also said it was something that 5 days wasn't going to fix, but he doesn't seem too concerned. And at this point, I think we just have to take him at his word.
Jason, how much do you think it's impacted him, though? Because we look at the numbers and he's shown some flashes, a couple of great games right before the All-Star break. But how much do you think, physically the shoulder has impacted him? How much do you think he needed this All-Star break?
Yeah, I think the All-Star break really could be really good for him and this team. They all are dealing, not all, but like Keegan said, everybody in the room yesterday had something that they were dealing with. And that happens over the course of a season. With DeAaron in particular, it's hard to say. Like, clearly it's affected him at times, but it's not the only thing he's dealing with, and it's so I think it's important to remember it's the right shoulder, not the left. He's a lefty. So, I'm not going to assume that it's affected his shooting or anything like that, although maybe it has. We saw some pretty big fluctuations in his numbers, like in November, December, January. He went from being like an MVP candidate early in the year to where his scoring average was down to, I think, about 22 points in January. So, I think that, among other things, he had an ankle. He's had a little bit of a wrist issue at times where you'll see him grab at the wrist. So these are bumps and bruises that these guys deal with. DeAaron's always been a tough guy and played through a lot of that stuff and really doesn't say much about it even. So I think, cumulatively, they've all taken a toll and may have contributed to slowing him down. In addition, just being tired and worn out. The way that guy plays, I can't imagine running up and down the way he does. And I think his body has taken a little bit of a beating over the year, and I think he could be rejuvenated coming out of the All-Star break.
Jason Anderson with us from the Bee. If I may, Jason, I want to circle back to something you told us. I think you were the only reporter in the locker room up in Portland, and I remember you were telling us about DeAaron, and you said you were worried about him.
Yeah.
Can you? Where are we with any of that? Is there anything more you can tell us about whatever was going on there?
Well, it was actually Phoenix, when I got back from Phoenix.
Thank you.
And at the time it was kind of in the middle of that weird thing with the media blackout and just not granting any interviews for like 16 days. And there was there were a couple of times I saw him and he just didn't seem to be in the same kind of spirits that we had seen more recently. It kind of reminded me of going back a year or so before the Domas trade happened, where he, I don't know, had kind of withdrawn a little bit and just wasn't himself. And so that's kind of where I was coming from, when I said I was a little bit worried about where he was mentally. But really he's been, once we got through that period and things, worked themselves out, and he's been, having conversations with us again. Like he's been fine. I mean, he's been great. He was in great spirits yesterday. He was in good spirits before the break. Drapes, I think you're right. I think we saw right before the break some pretty explosive stuff from him, where he, like, I think in that last Denver game, he went up and tried to just jack one.
Right.
And I think he missed the dunk, but like the explosion was there. I mean, in the legs and everything else. And so, I think he's worked through whatever was going on there. And I think he's in a better place now.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason Anderson, Sac Bee, joining us here on the Drive Guys, Sactown Sports 1140. What can you tell us about Domas and this illness? Anything to be concerned about or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't really know what the illness is or how serious it is, whether it might linger a few days. But, it's certainly an issue going into the game tomorrow. If he's not going to be able to go, you're going to have to deal with Wembanyama without Domas out there. I think otherwise that's a really good matchup for them, given, Domas' strength and the way he tends to kind of bang against lighter bodies, so to speak. So if you don't have him, that's an issue for tomorrow. Then they have a couple days off before they go to LA to play the Clippers, and then they'll have Miami on a back-to-back Monday. So hopefully, for the Kings, a couple of days will be enough for him to get better and get right.
Last season, as you well know, the Kings came out blazing after the break. I think they won 5 in a row, 11-13.
Right.
Do you think they're in position to do something like that again?
Yeah, potentially. Again, I think Fox will be rejuvenated. I think, I think the break will be good for some of the other guys too. Their schedule is, fairly favorable at least over the last 28. They're going to play 17 of those at home. Whether they can win 11 of 13 or not, I don't know. I mean, that's, but it was a big surprise when they did it last year, because that schedule was daunting coming out of the AllStar break. And really the question was like, can these guys hold on to where they are? And not only to hold on to it, they kind of solidified themselves as a home court team and a top 4 seed. So, that period was really, really good for them. And if they can come out and kind of hit the Jets, as Mike Brown might say, I could see them rolling off some wins.
Hey, that's some music to our ears. Jason, when you look at it, we know Fox, we know Sabonis. Who needs to be an X factor? Who are you looking to this last 28 games to help propel this team to the playoffs?
I think I'd point to everybody in that supporting cast. I mean, Domas and Fox took turns carrying this team over the first half of the year. Keegan's shooting wasn't right. Kevin's shooting wasn't right. Harrison shooting was fine. It just the attempts weren't there, and he wasn't putting up numbers. So, you look at those 3 guys, you look at Malik, to continue doing what he's done. I think he's probably my top 6 man of the year candidate right now. And you hope you can get more of the same from him. And really, I think, that's your core, and those are the guys you need to lean on. You need Kevin to, continue to shoot the ball better, as he's done recently. Keegan to guard, and then you hope that some of that offense can be there too. He's going to be a really special player if he puts those 2 things together at some point. But it's interesting. I've got a story coming out tomorrow that I'll pitch here a little bit to you guys, but It's offense and defense in Sacramento. I feel like this is a huge discussion since training camp. Mike's been urging defense. And we really hadn't heard from Monty much until recently. But Monty comes out and clearly offense is at the top of mind for him. He's like, we're the number 1 offense. We've slipped. We need to get back there. And so I really did a deep dive on what the numbers say, where they're at offensively, where they're at defensively, what Mike's saying about it, what Monty has said. And, I think it's a fair question to ask. Are they seeing completely eye to eye on that discussion? Monty and Wes and those guys have built this offensive juggernaut, and Mike being the veteran coach with tons of playoff and championship experience wants defense. He says that's how we are going to win playoff series down the road. And so I think it's a really interesting conversation to have and look at what everybody wants here from this team. And it's probably going to be a big factor down the stretch because, if Mike has achieved what he wants to achieve with them defensively, he said something interesting yesterday that if their 3-point defense wasn't so bad, they would be number 8 in the league. He said if they were just average, they would be number 8 in defensive rating, which is fascinating to me. And then the free throw issue, which we've all talked about, he says they'd be top 10 in offensive rating as well. And so if you can resolve those two things, if you can work on those closeouts and defend the 3-point line better, convert at a higher rate from the free throw line, you may finish the year top 10, at least over the last 28 games in offensive and defensive rating. And if they can get there, they're going to be cooking, I think, going into the playoffs.
Jason Anderson with us from the Bee. I'm glad you brought up that whole issue of offense, defense. I think it's one of the absolute keys to this whole group where they end up with the front office and the coach. And I really appreciated that you asked Monty about that at his post deadline presser when you brought up that question, because that's something I've been wondering about too. So thank you for that. You mentioned Malik, and I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. How tough do you think it'll be for them to keep Malik, given the limitations on what you can offer him based on the salary and the contract that he's under now?
Yeah, it's hard to read the tea leaves on that. I've tried to have that conversation with Malik a couple times, and he really doesn't want to get into anything until the off season. I don't potentially it could be difficult, but given that they didn't go make a big move and take on like another big long-term salary at the trade deadline, I think that puts them in a position at least to put their best foot forward in those discussions. I don't know if they, there are probably some teams that are going to come after Malik and maybe be able to offer a little more money, although there aren't going to be a lot of teams with a lot more money. That's an important factor in this is I think it's limited to, 5 or 6 or whatever the number is of teams that are really going to be able to go higher or much higher. But teams may come at Malik and say, we want you to start for us. And that may be a decision, that him and his agent and the people around him will have to make at that point. So really, I don't know. I wish I had I wish I could tell you more, but I think that's kind of up in the air, and that's going to be a big factor going into the off season.
Don't need to tell you, for great Kings coverage, Sac Bee and SacBee.com, Jason Anderson. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate it. See you tomorrow night.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good evening.
All right. Coming up, Chauncey and Coop, are they Hall of Famers? Next, Drive Guys, Sactown Sports.